There's
Do you know how to see how that's going?
but there's Jordy, Rojas,
Do you know how to see how that's going? I would say Jordy.
but there's
I got
the other one. I'm not
Yep.
The other ones are okay.
Ever. Jordy Rojas, or got the. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Remind you all the microphones, if you press kind of at the very front, the little person with the press that, and it turns red.
Coaching in your space.
This time we'll call the December 3rd, 2021 meeting to order. Start with our pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And at this time, we'll have a recognition of our Christmas card artists for this year. When I call your name, if you come up and receive your cards. I'm going to apologize. I'll apologize here for the first name if I butcher it. Jordy?
They go just talking to him.
Jordy Rojas Argat. Vinka Hever. Michelle Hernandez Gonzalez. Brooklyn Hannon. Victoria Thompson.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind a little creative
comment here. First of all, I want to say that each year we have the pleasure of picking out wonderful, wonderful artwork from students across the district, definitely in Mr. Thomas's art classes here at Polk County High School. We use that for our Christmas cards that go out all over the state and country. And so I want to say congratulations to you. It's a great honor to be selected. A big thank you to Jeff Thomas for the art program and the super job that you do. And if you don't mind, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our Christmas card artists. Ms. Trump, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you don't mind, would you walk outside with them and get a quick cell phone photo with everybody? And then y'all are welcome to hang around for the festivities, or you can go on and put some life in your life. It's up to you. Congratulations again, and thank you for being here.
At this time, we'll be looking for approval of our minutes from our November the 8th meeting. Has everybody got a chance to review the minutes? And you'll have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as read.
Motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. And at this time, I will now turn the meeting over to Superintendent Green for the yearly election of our chair and vice chair.
Thank you, sir. As you know, we did this recently, but this is the time of year we normally vote for our chair and vice chair who will take over at the January meetings and move forward. Really, as soon as we vote, this will take effect. But, at this time, I would open up the floor for nominations for chair of the Polk County Board of Education.
I move that Mike Ashworth remain as our chairman.
Ms. Allen moves that Mr. Ashworth remain as chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Gibbs seconds. Are there any other nominations or any discussion? All in favor of Mr. Ashworth being chair, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Sorry, the motion carries 6-1. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now for our vice chair elections. At this time, the secretary would entertain motions for the vice chair position for the Polk County Board of Education.
I nominate Rick Coe.
I second.
Got a nomination for Mr. Coble by Mr. Ashworth and a second by Ms. Allen. Any other nominations or discussion? All those in favor of Mr. Coble being vice chair of the Polk County Board of Education, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And that will carry 7-0. Mr. Ashworth, I'll return the meeting to you, sir.
Okay, now moving under instructional. First up, Mr. Dave Shirkin for a fall 2021-2022 testing schedule.
This is a report that I bring to you every fall about our testing that's going to go on at the end of the first semester. So in North Carolina, high school courses in particular, there are 4 of them that receive an end of course test: biology, English 2, math 1, and math 3. Those are the 4 courses that receive an end of course test. Those tests, no matter how they're administered, we still have a few students that have chosen to take their instruction remotely, but all students that are enrolled in those courses must take their test during the last 5 days of the semester and on campus with us. So today is the 5th day before the end of the semester for the early college. So you'll notice they started their testing today. They'll finish up starting on Tuesday and then makeups for Wednesday there, depending if students are absent. And at the end of this week, they'll be finished with their first semester. The high school goes on a little bit different. If you move down that document a little further, you'll see that for the high school, their main testing days are January 13th and 14th. This is a schedule that's a lot different. For years, we have talked with the high school about working with their schedule in such a way that they can keep as many kids in school receiving as much instruction as possible. And because of the way the student schedules and the test worked out this year, they've taken that exam week, those 5 days, where very frequently students were only in class if they had an end of course test, maybe 2 of those days. And they worked out a schedule where all students are in school at least 4 days of that week. So if you look at that schedule, Monday is a regular school day. Tuesday, they're doing first period, whatever exam. In the morning, they're doing whatever exam. We give a CTE exam, a teacher exam, or a review for your end of course test you're gonna be taking at the end of the week. You're doing it there for first period in the afternoon, or first period in the morning, third period in the afternoon, and then second and fourth period. So Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, all students should be in school those 3 days. Thursday is our exam day with makeup testing in the afternoon, and then Friday, another exam day. So they can do that kind of because of the way they adjusted their schedule this year. There are very few students that take English 2 and Math 3. It's a sophomore course and a junior course. So in essence, they can give all of their English 2 tests on one day and all of their Math 3 tests on the other day, and no students have a conflict right there. This won't work when we get to second semester and we have Math 1 and we have biology that fits in there with a lot of students that have a lot of different conflicts that they can have those tests during the same period right there. But they've worked to add a couple of extra instructional days into their calendar this year. So I just wanted to point that out. The high schools worked really hard on that, and they'll be testing those 2 weeks, those 2 days, in particular the 13th and 14th. The weekend then falls in there, and they come back the 17th, the 18th. There are 2 snow makeup / rollover days for the second semester to start on January 19th. So that's their testing time. One of the other things I wanted to point out, just so that you are aware of it, you're going to hear in a few minutes about the continuing education visits that we're doing with each of the schools. And one component of that visit is that Mr. Green's doing, and Ms. Crump and myself are visiting each of the schools, meeting with their school improvement team. But one important conversation we're having during that time is to give our teachers permission. Remember, we're a school system that for years and years and years has bragged on how good our test scores are, and our teachers working on the content that matches those tests. And we're giving our teachers permission and telling them, even though they've heard this before, that if you're teaching 5th grade and you have students that are in there that are missing 4th grade skills or the end of 3rd grade skills, spend that time, go back, teach them what they're missing. That's going to do our students a much greater favor in the long run of their career that's with us than pounding them on just the content that is in 5th grade right there. We're trying to change that concept to make sure, or strengthen our concept of doing exactly what the students are going to need to be successful. If they miss multiplication in whatever grade that was supposed to be, don't try to go past it. Make sure you're spending that time and going back and focusing on the skills that were missed over the last 1.5 to 2 years right there. Questions about this?
When do we typically get the second semester exam schedule?
You usually do it right at the end of the school year, but it's very easy to understand. It is going to be the testing during the last 5 days of the school year. So where it falls during that, it is probably going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, first period, second period, third period, fourth period. I will almost guarantee it, depending until we look at that schedule more closely.
Any more questions for Mr. Sherman? Okay, this is for information only. Thank you, Mr. Sherman. On to now continued school improvement update. Ms. Crawford.
Good evening. It's another great day to be in Polk County Schools. I would like to share with you that we are currently in the process of holding our continuous improvement meetings at the school level. As you know, back in 2018, the board adopted a continuous improvement process. So we are meeting with the school teams to discuss their continuous improvement. We did meet with the middle school last week and had a great meeting with them. And what you have in front of you is an agenda with the dates and times listed for each of the schools. We certainly want to invite you, if you would like to come out to those meetings, to join us. And we enjoy meeting with the principals and their school teams and finding out all their great information regarding continuous improvement. Do you have any questions?
All right, this item is also for information only. Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Next, we have our EC annual report with Ms. Tony Hay.
Good side.
Good evening. Okay. Oh, okay. Good evening. I want to bring you the Exceptional Children's Report. Before I get started, I do want to give you a little bit of information. This report is posted by June 1st by NCDPI. And so when you think about that, I want you to realize that the data is at least 1 year old. So the data that I'm giving you today and any information about this data could be from as far back as 1819 and 1920. And some data is even older than that. So the first piece, what I want you to do is there's historical information here. If you'll notice, the blue boxes, that's the most current information. We had a significant improvement in our dropout rate with exceptional children. There was a significant drop in our graduation rate. I don't get overly concerned about that because our numbers of graduating EC children are very small, and one student can mean a 10 to 20% drop. So, and that information is also from the 1920 school year. So we are looking at that, gathering information and working on those things right now. Indicator 3, that's student performance data. I have nothing to bring you on that because the students didn't test in 1920. So we don't have anything really to measure or look at there. Suspension and expulsion rates. We're always very good in this area. There's no concerns of over suspending our students who have disabilities. Same thing there. Least restrictive environment. There was a drop here in our children who are considered to be in the regular setting. I don't want you to get alarmed about that because in the course of last year, I found a data entry error. If you will remember, our EC teachers in the 1920 school year got a brand new program to put everything into. So there was a lot of learning, a lot of different drop-down boxes. I looked that up today and we're getting that fixed. We have 82% of our special education children considered to be in the regular setting. So they're in those general ed classrooms, getting all that great general ed instruction from the reg ed teacher and supports from their EC teacher. Same thing goes with our preschool program. Almost all of our preschool children are served in our preschool classrooms. We do have some children who aren't enrolled and they get their services by coming onto campus and working with our EC teachers and our speech therapists. So those numbers look very good. Another thing that I'm very proud of to have such a great preschool team to work with is if you look at our preschool outcomes, that data really shows that our children with disabilities are going to school ready to learn. They show tremendous growth in the areas of social emotional skills. If you look there, if you're trying to make that out, the 83.3% is significant growth towards same age peers. And 50% is the amount of kids who make it to age, to their same age peers. So social emotional skills, they know how to get along. They learn how to do school when they come to preschool. And then they also do a good job with those self-help skills. So they learn how to put their things away, take care of all of their personal needs. It is a little bit lower in knowledge acquisition. That's expected of our children with disabilities, but what I know is that they're ready to learn when they get to school. We have indicator 8, which is parent involvement. That data is extremely old. I do expect us to be, it's about a 5-year cycle that our parents receive surveys in the mail, and then DPI puts that information in. So I really have no more information there. Indicator 9, disproportionate representation. There are no concerns there. Also, no concerns with disproportionality and eligibility. Indicator 11, the goal is always 100%. That's what the feds require. I have to say that I'm extremely proud of this DC team because that data is from the 1920 school year. That means that those teachers were on top of it. They got stuff done before we were shut down. That's not to say that when you look at the early childhood data for this year and in the next few years, that data is likely to look off just because COVID made it really hard to get children referred, tested. They were out, quarantined, all that kind of stuff. But that 1920 school year, that speaks highly of that group. Secondary transition, we've not been audited in quite a while. I expect that to come in the next year or two. That's where this data comes from. It measures the transition plans and quality goals inside of IEPs. So there's no new data for you there. And indicator 14 is fairly new in the last like 5 to 7 years, where they started measuring post-school outcomes for students with disabilities. I am super excited to tell you that we just finished those interviews. Maria Freeman did those interviews, and it was really exciting for her to have the opportunity to talk with those kids and see what those outcomes are. However, that data will not be available to you until next year. So we'll get the things, but it was productive. And again, thank you for that position of Maria being able to work within the community and do those transition services. Any questions?
When does the surveys go out to the parents? What month?
I don't know. I would have to look that up. There's a list on the website of when you are. That's probably in the summer, but I don't know what year. I can find that out for you.
Any other questions for Ms. Haley? All right, this is also an information only item. Thank you, Ms. Haley. Next, we have a Forbes Foundation grant with Mr. Dave Sherman.
Just a minute here. Get back to the next part. So we were notified earlier. I need to pull up the most recent version of this. We were notified earlier last week that we received a grant from the Forbes Foundation. Let me find it here. There it is. So we knew that we were getting $80,000. The Forbes Foundation has been very successful in helping both our students with college applications and college scholarships, and then supporting instructional programs that happen in our schools. As we got some more information, we put that on your agenda right here that said we knew we were getting $80,000, and today I received some more information. So I'm going to read to you the letter that we actually received from the Forbes Foundation. So Superintendent Green, Chairman Ashworth, and board members. It's a pleasure to present you this evening. This is the letter from the Forbes Foundation. Present you this evening with a check from the Stuart and Margaret Forbes Foundation from the Board of Directors, Jim Boyle, F.K. McFarland, and Susan McHugh. This donation in the amount of $80,000 is being awarded this year as follows. $15,000 to support the school system's robotics team, $15,000 to support the Buddy Sneakers program, and $50,000 to support the construction of new outdoor learning center for pre-K through second grade students at Polk Central Elementary School and at Polk County, and at the outdoor learning facility at Polk County Middle School. In addition, this year, we will also award $88,000 in 4-year scholarship funds for 2 seniors at Polk County High School and 2 seniors at the Polk County Early College. As you know, Margaret Forbes left a legacy of support for expanding educational opportunities for students in the Polk County school system through preschool programs, scholarships for seniors, and funding for numerous instructional needs identified by the school administration. At this time of year, when we all pause to be grateful, our board would like to express our deep gratitude for the hard work of each one of our Polk County teachers and each one of our auxiliary staff, as well as the ongoing leadership of our superintendent and his staff and our dedicated principals. We also recognize the tireless energy and numerous hours that each of you board members contribute to ensure that our students are receiving a quality education that is second to none in North Carolina. Polk County Schools did not just happen to be the top 5 school systems in the state for the past 5 years. It is a result of a common vision, focused goals, enormous teamwork, and great care. So as we, the Forbes Foundation, reflect during this challenging time we are in, we consider it a privilege to support the incredible work of each individual in our school system. And most importantly, we support our very special students who make us all proud every day. Best regards and Merry Christmas, the Board of Directors of the Stuart and Margaret L. Forbes Foundation. So that's $88,000 that go directly to students as part of scholarships, and $80,000 that'll go to the school system for programs and building needs.
Mr. Chair, this is an ongoing thing with Forbes Foundation, and just want to say thank you to Deb for and constantly keep the name Margaret Forbes in our minds. She's done so much for this district, the young people and the families in this community. So I appreciate Ms. McHugh and the board taking the time to do that. But I want us all to keep in mind how fortunate we are to have philanthropists like the Forbes Foundation and Margaret Forbes in our community.
Thank you, Dave. Next, we move on to administrative. Up first, we have our 2020-2021 audit presentation from Manager Smith and White.
All right, so my name is Owen Cole. I work for Anderson Smith and White. Is that good?
You're good.
Okay.
You're taller than me.
And I would like to present the audited financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2021. And I've got the financial statements in my hand. I know everybody doesn't have a copy, but it's pretty thick, 77 pages total. A majority of that is just kind of standard accounting wording. So we're not going to go through all 77 pages, fortunately. But just kind of hit the highlights here. There are 3 major parts of the financial statements. So your basic financial statements, which would be your statement of net position, your fund financial statements, income statements, stuff like that. Second part is your notes to the financial statements. And those notes just kind of give you some detail on the numbers that are presented. Just different things about the Polk County schools. And the third part is the compliance report. That's just where we say, our opinion on whether or not the board is in compliance with the federal and state requirements. So, real quick, so there are 4 opinion letters that we issue, and I'm glad to say that all 4 of those opinion letters, or our opinions, are unmodified. That's a clean audit report. That is the highest level of assurance that we can give you as our auditors, as your auditors. And in general, it's what we would consider to be a good audit. So, all right. So, real quick, like I mentioned, actually, I've got okay. So, going to the first of the 4 opinions that we issued. It's on page 1, going on down, but this is just an opinion on the financial statements, on whether or not they're presented fairly in accordance with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. And we didn't notice anything that would cause us to modify our opinion. No departures from reporting requirements, nothing like that. All right, scrolling on down. And the next thing I want to point out is the down at the fund financial statements. All right, so this is your governmental funds balance sheet, and your governmental funds, the focus is on current financial resources. So it's cash, receivables, and liabilities, more or less is what you're going to see there. And as far as the general fund, which is on the left, the first column on the left, as you can see, there's about $1.3 million of cash. Got some liabilities, but if you look down at the bottom here where it says total fund balances, it's about 1.1 million this year. And that is an increase, pretty good increase from last year. Then also the other fund to point out is called the Other Special Revenue Fund. And this is the one over here on the far right. As you can see, it's got about $900,000 cash, some liabilities, but you're down at the bottom, your fund balance is about 900,000. So that is also an increase from last year. It's pretty good numbers for a district this size. So it's good to see it going in that direction. Going on down to the next page, which is your income statement. It's your governmental funds income statement. And just looking again at the general fund, most important part on this statement is down at the bottom where it says net change in fund balance. And you can see it's about 500,000. So that's how much fund balance was gained during the year. And also going over to the far right column, other special revenue fund, also about $500,000 fund balance was gained during the year. Now there's several different reasons for that increase, but it's good to see it going in the right direction. Also, one thing we just kind of mentioned real quick is, with the COVID monies, we're recommending that districts build up their fund balance as much as you can, because, of course, 23, 24, those funds are going to run out. Now, in the same breath, we completely understand that there are things that this money needs to be spent on. There's educational gaps, there's social issues, depression. So, like I say, build fund balance if you can, use the COVID monies to build fund balance. But, there's money that needs to be spent, and it needs to be spent. That's kind of the way we're looking at it. And if anybody has any questions, just feel free to interrupt anytime. All right, so the next fund to look at is your school nutrition fund. This is going on down. And statement of net position. Most important thing on this statement is going to be your cash and your receivables. So between those two, you got about 160,000, which is an increase from last year. So it's good to see that about $60,000 has been increased from last year as far as cash and receivables. As you go on down, you've got your net position is negative, but that's why in this statement we focus more on cash and receivables. This has to do with pension liabilities and stuff like that. So let's see, going on down to the next page, which is your income statement. It's your income statement for a school food service fund. And most important part of this statement is down at the bottom. It says net income or loss, 241,000. So, some of that's non-cash, but still, that's a good increase. All right, so now we're going to all right, so following this statement, there's notes. As you can see, it's just a bunch of wording, so it can be informative, not say that, but it's just a lot of standard accounting wording. I don't see any reason to go into that right now. So as I mentioned earlier, there's 4 opinions that we give. And so our second opinion is going to be down here. This is on basically on internal control over compliance. It's just overall internal control over compliance requirements. And our opinion was unmodified. It's a clean report. There's nothing we would have to report to the governing board or to the state or anything like that. All right, so going on down. This is a report on compliance with federal reports. And same thing there. There's nothing to report. It's a clean report, unmodified opinion. Just basically saying they complied with all the compliance requirements of federal programs. Going on down. This is your last opinion letter. It's a report on compliance with requirements applicable to each state program. So the same thing there, unmodified opinion, clean report, nothing that we need to report, no issues, no findings. All right, and that is the last thing I'm going to discuss in the financial statements. There's a separate letter. And if you're looking at this letter, this is the required communications letter. And that's exactly what it is. It is what it sounds like. It's a communication that we have to have with management and with the board at the end of the audit. And the most important parts in this thing are down on the first page, down at the bottom. Difficulties encountered in performing the audit, there were none. That means everything went smoothly. They gave us everything we asked for. No issues at all. And going on over to the second page, kind of the same thing where it says disagreements with management. I'm pleased to report that there were none. So everything just went as expected. And also, just real quick, just want to say thank you, to the finance staff. It's been a hard year for everybody, hard couple of years, really. It's hard to believe we're coming up on 2 years. But in the middle of a pandemic, all the other stuff they're dealing with, and they dealt with us in an audit on top of that. We certainly appreciate it. And that concludes my presentation on the June 30th, 2021 financial statements. Does anybody have any questions?
All right. Anything, Mr. Green?
Mr. Chair, I would like to add the audit committee, the budget committee did meet prior to this meeting to hear a little bit more detailed version of this report. We want to say a big thank you to Anderson, White and Smith. They do a great job for us, easy to work with. Certainly give us great information during the audits. They work well with us. I want to say publicly too that I certainly appreciate the efforts of our CFO, Debbie Lovelace, and her entire finance staff. They do tremendous work, as do all of our directors and departments and those who do program budgets to keep all this information accurately and get it to our auditors in a timely fashion. So obviously glad to put a little bit of fund balance back, and it is something that the board has been concerned about over the years. With what we expended last year, that ESSER money, the COVID money did help us a great deal to backfill those holes in that we had and allowed us to keep some of our local money, which I think is important moving forward. So I just want to say thank you to Anderson, White and Smith. Thank you to David Lovelace. I certainly appreciate everybody's efforts keeping the money straight.
Thank you so much.
Sir, we understand if you'd like to stick around and watch the rest of our meeting, but if you want to get on the road, we certainly will understand.
Mr. Chair, we do need a approval by the board to accept funds.
So it is an action item. I'm looking for a motion in a second.
A second.
We have a motion in a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Next, under administrative, we have a budget resolution with Debbie Lovelace.
While Ms. Lovelace comes up to the stage, I do want to make a comment about, we just received the budget recently. It is very complex. There's a lot of different wording and language in there from past years. And so finance officers, the Department of Public Instruction, people are still scrambling a little bit to figure out all the details. we did feel it was important to put a budget resolution in front of you before we went to the holidays so that we can get down the road of getting this money allocated out in the proper places. So Ms. Loves?
Okay. In your board packets, we have the resolution for this year. As Aaron said, there's probably a lot of changes that's going to be made because we just got this last week. So I think I even got an amendment since then, since I think I got one Friday after I did this, a small amount, but as the next few weeks, we'll be getting more because of the raises and the benefits changes. But I wanted to get something out there because I'm not used to having to wait this long for the state to get us numbers. So this would be a good starting place. So in the budget, the state funds is on page 1, and it's $17,639,418. The next one is our local funds, which stays pretty much the same from year to year. $5,280,055. The next one is Fund 3. This is where probably a lot of our changes will be made in the next few weeks, few months probably. DPI hasn't gave us a lot of guidance yet. We know some things, but not enough to be able to really make a decision on yet. But we do know at this point that we have $6,052,817 dollars. Now, some of this money also is carryover from prior year. We have to carry over a certain amount from year to year to meet our payrolls for the first several months. A lot of times, like Title I, and some of those we still have to pay, but we don't actually get new allotments until probably November-ish. But we still have to make payroll in August, September. So we always have to carry some money up from year to year to make sure we meet those payroll liabilities. Child nutrition, I got a budget at $2,268,000. That might be a little high because we don't really know yet what they're going to do on child nutrition, but this was pretty close to what it was last year. So this may end up decreasing, but we just have to wait and kind of see where child nutrition goes. And then our capital outlay is $1,022,963. This includes money from the county, some money from the state for buses, and also we got a grant, which includes some buses from the grant for the air quality that we got. It was around $200,000 and some for that. So the other one is our other restricted funds. Those are our grants like Head Start, NC Pre-K, and some of our local grants that we got. Forbes is in this one, Polk County Community Foundation. So there's a lot of smaller grants in this one also. And that is all of them. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Chair, this resolution is very similar to what we've done in past years. I think Ms. Lovell did a great job of outlining a couple of the spots where it'll be a little different. But as she said, the board should expect us to return often with amendments once the money continues to get put into our allotment, holding places, and as we learn the rules around some of the extra money.
Any other questions? All right, this is an action item. We'll be looking for a motion in a second. Or approval.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lovelace. Next on our list is Mr. Dave Sherman with a surplus property list.
We're doing a little bit of catch up for some materials, properties we had not gotten rid of, surplus properties. This is a collection of things that have been in our warehouse for a little while. Some carpet squares and carpet scraps from various projects we've done in various classrooms and other locations across the area. Hundreds of used textbooks that we've placed over the last few years. Those have all gathered together. We have old cafeteria trays, 100+ cafeteria trays on there. We've been working on some, getting rid of some old materials. We have some used 3-ring binders, about 80 or so of those. A couple of wooden desks and tables that are there. We'll put those up for bid, and they can be bid on. The bidding closes on January 7th, 2022, right there.
Any questions or anything for Mr. Sherman? This is again another actionable item. We'll be looking for a motion and a second for approval.
I make the motion that Mr. Sherman will be allowed to bid the surplus.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. And right back to Mr. Sherkin, we're now going to have a policy update on the use of school bus safety belts on second reading.
This is the same policy we brought you last month. You approved on first reading. Nothing has changed in it since you had it last month. The short summary of this is if there are seat belts on our school buses, which there are in all of our, going to be in all of our new buses, then wearing them is mandatory for students when they're riding on buses with seat belts.
Any questions for Mr. Sherkin? Again, we'll be looking for a motion and a second for approval.
I move that policy 6304 be approved on second reading.
Have a motion, looking for a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. And right back to Mr. Sherkin again. We now have a board meeting material on the website.
So if you look at this website, you've been using this particular website since 2012 to host the public components of your meetings. So we started with 2 meetings back in 2012, and then have put on there every public meeting you've had since that time. So almost going on almost 10 years, 9 years there of meetings. Unfortunately, the way this happens in technology very, very frequently, this particular product started out by a company called Haiku. It was then bought up by a company called Pearson, and it became Pearson Learning. Well, Pearson also has their own product that does something very similar. And so they're canceling this product that they just bought from their competitor. So this site, the tool we're using right here, is no longer going to exist after the end of this school year. This is not the official location where your board actions and your board minutes are. Ms. Odell takes care of all that. So this is going to go away, and starting for the next school year, you'll end up with a very similar website from a different company that hopefully will stay around for another 9 or 10 years, and you'll have that record out there. So just want you to know it'll look very similar. It's not going to be in this product called Pearson Learning because they're closing and ending that product right there.
We'll still have access to the older data to look at if we need to.
This will not. No, we will not have access to this. Now, Ms. Odell has the official record of anything if you would want it. She has all of that record for you. This is just the place where we put it out there publicly available.
Any other questions for Mr. Sherkin? Okay, this is an information only item requiring no action. We'll move now on to public information requests. Mr. Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wanted to take a few minutes and make sure the board was up to speed on our progress. I know the board is aware as we have forwarded the Public Information and Freedom of Information Act request to the board. So it's my understanding that you have all seen that, where they come from, and what the wording in those FOIA requests are. Our current request that we've received since October of 21, we did receive a request for an email search with keywords around things like CRT, 1619 project, et cetera. That has been completed and delivered. We also received a request for detailed information on our ESSER funding, the budget, the rules for use, and the agreements that we may have entered into to receive that funding. That has also been completed and delivered. We've had a request for all legal fees during the 2021 year, and also invoices for legal fees and liability insurance through November the 15th of 21. That is currently in progress. We've had a 6-part request for additional emails, any policies or procedures or instructional materials related to CRT, 1619 project, equity, etc. since January 1st of 2020. That is in progress. We've partially completed some of that. None of it has been delivered yet. We'll continue to work on it. We've also gotten a request for the full 1920, 2021, and 21-22 budgets for the entire district, all funds. That is in progress, and now that our fiscal audit is over with for the year, we ought to be able to get around to that pretty quickly. That's a decent spreadsheet to be able to print out, so we hope to get that done in the coming days or weeks. The review of all second step curriculum has been sought after. Those materials have been gathered, and the review process is currently going on with a member of the community. That will continue until those materials have all been reviewed. Also, all resources and materials for any class or course in Polk County schools that are instructional materials. That's a very challenging request to try to gather every single instructional material for every class and every grade level of Polk County schools. And so given the breadth and the amount of educator autonomy that we afford, we're going to be working through the specifics with that requesting person to make sure we address their information request accordingly, with the understanding that that's a very, very broad request. We've had an email request for superintendent and board emails since January 1st of 2020 with specific keywords. Those keywords are related to mostly COVID information, vaccines, things like that. That is also in progress. It's a fairly broad search. And so that's going to be challenging in terms of the number of emails and the time it will take to review each one of those for confidential information. I'll give you an example. If you have an email about a student or staff member who's in quarantine because they were or were not wearing a mask, the word mask shows up there, so we're going to have to go through that email, redact the confidential information out of it before we can release it. So that'll take some time for us to do. We are in progress trying to get those together. We've also had a request for the list of all library books in our school libraries. That is completed. The list is on our school or on our district website. You can go by and get that in a spreadsheet format or PDF. And then we received some specific challenges of books in our Polk County High School library. That is an access challenge. In other words, those books are not required reading. They are simply in the library. And so this particular set of individuals wishes to challenge the inclusion or access to those books in our library. That process has been initiated, and it'll begin with a school-based committee. Given the number of books on the list, that will also take a pretty decent amount of time. And we will definitely try to involve the community members with concerns in that process. I want to make sure that you're aware as a board that Polk County Schools Administration will work to comply with legitimate public information requests. We'll do so in a timely manner as much as we can. We've been dealing with some federal audits, program audits, and other required annual reporting, as well as trying to figure out what this budget means for us and how we get down this road. So we'll try to do it in a timely fashion, and we certainly appreciate the patience while we get those materials together. Mr. Chair, if it's not inappropriate, I would like a little bit of latitude to make some comments about the FOIA request. If you don't mind, the board's not in opposition.
Any opposition? I would think.
Thank you, sir. I think it's appropriate, and I appreciate you giving me a little bit of an opportunity to move a touch beyond the topic. Increasingly, public schools and local school board meetings are becoming political battlegrounds. The types of commentary and requests we are receiving are common all over the state and the nation. Historically, public schools have found themselves in the middle of social debates and in the political crosshairs. This is not new, but it does pose significant challenges for districts. Public schools must serve all students, no matter their backgrounds, beliefs, or future goals. We try to be all things to all people, and that's impossible, but we try. We've always worked to partner with families, parents, community members to collaborate for improvement to the educational experiences we provide to students and to examine areas and issues that are difficult to agree upon. We will continue to do that. I want to ask that we ensure these requests and the increased scrutiny is intended to move the district forward and to improve, not part of a larger political agenda. With so many districts facing the same requests, talking points, and book lists, and mentioned that people are being advised about parties outside of Polk County to make these requests, it certainly gives the appearance of political maneuvering. We will try to take each concern, request, and conversation as being well-intentioned and geared towards improving student outcomes. We are trying to give people the benefit of the doubt when they make these requests. Historically, our resources are given to schools, and as the board is aware, Polk County Schools is very thin at the administrative level. We have fewer people in the district office than we did 25 years ago, yet the workload over those years has only increased. We were struggling before with all that's required, especially with ESSER and the pandemic, and now with increasing requests for information and those likely to continue, I'll be coming back to the board with a request for an additional staff member at the district level to ensure we get things done and get them done correctly. This will mean those resources are not applied directly to students' classrooms. The more our community becomes divided and adversarial, the more difficult it will be to serve students and families effectively. Parents and community members do have a right to know what's going on in our schools and how we do the work. We have a process for this and for voicing concerns and objections and to challenging materials. We simply ask this be done in partnership and in a reasonable way according to those processes. That's evidence for our students that we can do this in a civil and productive way without tearing each other down or judging each other. We're going to disagree, but as President Lyndon Johnson said, if we must disagree, let's disagree without being disagreeable. Public schools will always have specific laws, rules, and guidelines we have to follow, and there will always be standards and curriculum we are required to teach. We realize there are some who disagree with these rules or feel they should not have to follow them. Certainly, that's their right to disagree and to educate their students as they see fit. We want to serve all students of Polk County, but for those who feel strongly about certain topics or decisions, there are other options. Homeschool, private and religious schools. There's voucher money available to go to private schools, and there are charter schools. Children do not have to attend public schools. We hope they will. For example, the books being challenged currently are not required reading in classrooms. When students are required to read or use a resource, parents may request a different book, a different assignment, or a different set of materials if they feel what is being used to teach the required standards is not appropriate for their child. We've honored these requests and will continue to do so. One of the reasons Polk County Schools have been so successful is because we have outstanding educators and we give them the autonomy to plan and deliver lessons as they see fit. No matter what we prescribe to them, they are the ones with students each and every day. We trust them to do their job in a professional way and to navigate those more difficult areas delicately. If they have issues, we talk with them and support them. To my knowledge, we have handled any legitimate issue brought to us and will continue to do so. But I must admit, I don't read Facebook, so I may be uninformed about other issues being discussed in our community. I say it over and over and over. Bring legitimate concerns about your child's education to us, and we will address them. I feel it's important for the board and the public to know that the recent attacks on public education, the continued lack of annual funding and compensation for staff members, and the questioning or suspicion around educator motives and intentions has left staff frustrated, feeling unappreciated, and in some cases ready to give up. We can't drive these wonderful people out of education over politics or conjecture. These fine people have dedicated their lives to doing all they can for students and families, and I'm extremely proud of them and to serve alongside of them. Let's show them we support their efforts, their wisdom, their expertise, and their experience. Let's treat them as the professionals that they are. We try to do things the Polk County way, to shy away from controversial initiatives that may not reflect our community's preferences, but there is no way we're going to make everyone happy or to get everyone's approval on all the things we are required to do. We work hard to make good choices on those decisions that are left to us, and we'll continue to work to improve and to be open and honest with parents and community members when they engage us and collaborate with us. My hope is that we can end the Facebook fussing, the divisive commentary, and the jumping to conclusions about the work of our educators. Because of what we have heard on the national news and our echo chambers or what's posted on somebody else's Facebook group. The type of public info requests and challenges take time and effort to address, time and focus that should be on the important day-to-day work of educating children and operating our schools. In my 27 years as an educator in Polk County, I must say that I am grateful to be a small part of this wonderful school district, and I'm confident that we can work together, show each other some grace and patience, and keep our focus on kids instead of other things. We can continue to do the great work that's been done for so many years for our community and our families. We ask for everyone's help in that endeavor. Thank you.
I just want to clarify one thing you said, and what I took from that was, it sounds like you're going to have to hire a full-time position to handle the extra workload being put on you from the scrutiny of our community and parents?
I think it's actually a confluence of circumstances. And what we've got is a situation this board may recall, we did have originally in our ESSER plan to have an additional administrative position to try to help out with some of that burden, especially when it comes to things like going to MTSS meetings, making sure that we do remediation plans the right way. And so we had talked about a half-bound position or something along those lines. If we're going to continue to receive FOIA requests at the rate we're receiving them, we're going to have somebody to help out with that too. So instead of us looking at a part-time position or a partially funded position, I feel like at this juncture, we just need to go ahead and get that done. Again, I'm not disparaging the public's right to know information. It is indeed something that we need to comply with to be transparent, and we're going to do that. It just takes a lot of boots on the ground. Historically, Polk County Schools has not endured that type of requesting, and so we've been able to focus our efforts on schools and classrooms and kids. But now I believe we're going to have that administrative piece to help us get through.
Yes, sir. If there's something we should know legally about FOIA request, please.
Well, the comment is simply that you are allowed to collect fees to reflect the expense of time and personnel to comply with these requests. I don't think this administration has done that before, but I wanted the board to be aware that both by state law and by policy, on-board policy, you are allowed to collect fees to folks to respond to these requests, from folks to respond to these requests.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other questions? All right, that was an information only item. I will now move on to school update with Mr. Grant again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's that time again when we get to take a look at our school situations and the mandatory masking policy vote that we need to take as a board every month. Just want to go through real quickly where we are. Mr. Sherman, thank you. You've already seen the prior context. You know where we've been in terms of September 8th and putting that temporary requirement in place. Mr. Sherman. Currently, we do have a temporary mask requirement still in place. According to the CDC and DHHS, there's still high community spread, both in the region and here in Polk County. It is 7.3% positivity today, or also 121 cases per 100,000 on December the 13th. The school positives and impacts have been fairly low. Recently, we're starting to see it drop off again after the Thanksgiving holidays. We did see an increase about that, but towards the end of last week, we hope we're seeing a decline. We are settling into about 2.6 cases on a 7-day rolling average. Again, students and staff are in school. The learning environment is intact. And we do see that some districts are beginning to go optional. Some have set dates when they're going to, or they've already made that decision. There are still 76 of 115 districts who are still requiring face coverings at this time. Some of them have metrics to control when those face coverings go on and off. For example, Rutherford County was recently optional, and because their transmission rate went back up to high, they're now required again in Rutherford County. That presents its own challenges going back and forth. Also, our previous quarantine rules and obligations are still in place. We did not get any news from DHHS as I had hoped and as other superintendents had hoped. So we're still waiting to hear back from them if there's going to be any relaxing of the rules, especially now that pretty much every age group in our public schools has had the opportunity to be vaccinated. We still do have increased access to testing, and that's to try to help kids get back in school quicker if they are quarantined. And again, we give no test or vaccine without parental consent and involvement, and the vaccination numbers are still fairly low for minors. As far as looking ahead, we'll continue to do what we've said we always do. That's to monitor the metrics, percent positive, local spread, school cases and impacts. We'll monitor for pockets of spread and various outbreaks in our community. And we definitely will be monitoring for DHHS changes in their guidelines and protocol for quarantine. Health experts do recommend several weeks of sustained or declining low numbers before changing anything. The next slide you will see is a slide you've seen before, and that is the definition of the different transmission levels according to the CDC. We would still be considered to be in that high range because of the cases per 100,000, and your percent positive is in the moderate range. As far as our administrative recommendation, mine to you as a board, is that I will say that people have had vaccine access to almost all ages and will have their second dose and their 14 days out from that vaccine soon. The DHHS isolation and quarantine guidelines are still in place. We're hopeful that they will shift, but given that they're still the same and the concern that we have over holiday gatherings and a potential spike right after we get back from Christmas, my recommendation for the board is to continue temporary masking through the holidays and revisit that in a January meeting, hopefully with an eye towards making them optional soon after. Be happy to answer any questions and allow the board to discuss.
Questions for Mr. Green?
I would like for us to continue with the path that we took last month, that if it dropped below a certain percentage within that 2-week period, that we go mask optional, like we discussed in the last meeting, and I would like to make that as a motion to continue that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to continue with the current guidance that we gave last month, which was that if we drop below 5% positivity on test cases, that we would go mask optional. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
It's the second Monday in January. It'll be the 10th. And just as a point of reference, we begin our second semester on the 19th.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of continuing with the guidance from last month, say aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
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 Nope, motion carries 4-3. Moving on down, next, old business. Mr. Green, any old business?
No, sir.
How about new business?
No, sir.
All right, you see under informational, we have your November Head Start Policy Council minutes presented to the board here, November preschool monthly report presented to the board, pre-K financial report, monthly financial report, month-to-date credit card report. Christmas break for students will be December the 20th through December 31st. Students return to school on January the 3rd. There's board training, Board Officer Academy virtual event on February 28th, and the Spring Law Conference virtual event on March 3rd through the 4th. We are now at time for public input. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind you our typical board policy is that we have 30 minutes for public input, 3 minutes per person. While you're speaking, please, while people are speaking, please be respectful of one another. As Mr. Green said, he's not on Facebook. I unfortunately am, not as much as I used to be, but I did see the weekend, it was fairly charged about the meeting. And let's just be respectful of one another when everyone is speaking, not talk over each other or make gestures and things like that. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I have on the public input sign in 22 names that have signed up to speak this evening. We stick with our 30 minutes. That would limit us to half of those being able to speak this evening. What is the pleasure of the board? We would have to have a motion in a second to amend our policy for this evening to accommodate all 22.
I would like for us to amend it here in the 22 that's on the agenda.
All right, I have a motion to amend. Do I have a second? Motion to second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Okay, motion carries. I'm not sure on the count. Who said yea, who said nay? Okay.
We're good. Yeah. 7-0.
I didn't hear any opposed. Okay. All right, with that being said,
Mr. Astor, if you move forward, once again, the microphones are kind of about halfway up on the right and the left-hand side of the stage there.
First person on our list to speak is Jason Allen.
Bear with me a second here. Good evening, board members. I typed this up to keep it short and sweet, but there's a couple things I'm going to address at the end of this too as well. My conversation tonight is not a political agenda. I just want to make that clear. Okay? I was hoping to come to you peacefully to resolve an issue about books in the Polk County schools. Still, it seems that we have some individuals, newspapers, teachers, and other politicians that think it's okay for children to read indecent and obscene materials and books. Magically, you've chosen this topic, take this topic off the agenda tonight. I know we put a request in for that to happen, but you get to speak, and as usual, we don't get to really do a whole lot, but feel like we're talking to a wall. So that's where our frustration is, not being disrespectful. I'm a parent who is not sheltering my children or protecting them from obscene material with strong graphic sexual content. I'm asking you to research and remove books as they come to your attention, as they violate the U.S. federal and North Carolina state obscenity laws under statute 14 TAC 190.1. The books brought to your attention have no serious artistic, literary, political, or scientific value. The board and the schools should judge these books based upon the statute 14 TAC 190.1 Section D in reference to children and other especially susceptible audiences. Nor should teachers undermine parents and tell the children that their parents are book burners when all we ask is to remove the books from the school library and put them in an adult section of a public library. We also request transparency in the classrooms and for staff members to stop trying to pit children against their parents. I've had this happen twice now with two of my youngest children. I've gone to the principal over at the middle school over this issue. This is not a political agenda. This is a concerned parent, and other parents are dealing with this problem. It's getting old. You as a board member, you have your board. We have a group of parents. That's what we are. I don't care if you're Democrat. I don't care if you're Libertarian. I don't care what you are. Republican. I believe in God, but if you choose not to, then that's your choice. The recent newspaper took that out of context with me at the commissioners meeting and twisted my words around. And I'll call them out, the triumvirate. And we have a lack of faith because things have been set up here at this board by certain individuals, and then they turn around and flip-flop back and forth. Okay? And then also information that's put up on this screen. We've seen this information go up there and it be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks old and out of date. Even commissioners noticed the last time that we were here. They're the ones that pointed it out.
Mr. Allen, your time is up.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy Clouda. I am a grandmother of 3 kids in the Polk County School. When we first started coming to these board meetings, it was to address mask mandates. We know how that turned out. You voted to keep the face masks on and continue to do so against many of our wishes. And now here we are again to discuss another topic that recently came to our attention. The books that should not be available to our minor age children. What the heck is going on? I personally read a couple of the books in question that were pulled. I was shocked. They were too adult for me, and I'm 63 years old. Though some parents may be satisfied with simply pulling the books in question from the shelves, I would like to address a deeper concern. The books, in my opinion, simply are an indicator of a more serious issue. I believe the public education system is seeking to undermine the parents' authority over their children. It occurred to me after I heard that some teachers refer to us as helicopter parents, rebel browsers, fascists. One teacher told her class that parents were going to have a book burning. Come on. Many of the parents do their best to monitor everything that comes into their homes, such as movies, TV shows, video games, books, smartphones, etc. So to find out that the school promotes books to be read that go against their moral beliefs, it's just wrong. This is a violation to the parents' autonomy and their authority over their children. And so the more I've learned in these past 18 months regarding the schools in our country, the more bizarre it appears. What I thought to be a community here, whether you're left or right, liberal or conservative, we all would agree that America is a great country. But now it feels like a lid came off and everyone is having a free-for-all to tear down our values. Let's set aside, just for a second here, that some believe these books are morally harmful, or that some teachers and parents believe that the books are beneficial. The bottom line is this: teachers or staff should never, ever undermine a parent-child bond. This is a direct assault of the family unit, and it will not be tolerated. To the parents, don't allow the schools to create a wedge between you and your child's education. The school system is broken, and we parents and grandparents need to be involved. And to the board, I would ask this: please consider creating a committee that would include the parents in this community, who will decide which books are allowed
Ms. Snyder, your time is
in the
up.
library, and then also the recommended reading. Which
Your time is up, Ms. Snyder. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Jennifer Polk.
So I have an example of a book that is in Polk County High School. This smut, I'm going to read from, I'll read a couple of passages. It's Marxist communist democratic propaganda, it's the sexualization of our children. A powerful layered tale of forbidden love in times of unrelenting racism. CRT right here. Out of the Darkness by Ashley Hope Perez. The boys among us had no trouble getting past the plain clothes and laying down plans. Take her out back, we boys figured. Then hand on the titties. Put it in her coin box. Put it in her cornhole. Grab a hold of that braid. Rub that calico. The nicer boys among us thought, buy her ice cream first. Dance with her once or twice. So hearing her staring straight at her, he grinned. You thought you fooled me, but I fooled you, he said. I knew you were awake. He closed the door behind him and locked it. He put the locks on all the bedroom doors the week before. When Estella asked him why, he said simply, it's how a house should be. She hadn't protested. Henry came to the side of her bed and pulled back the covers. Naomi sat up quickly and scrambled back. Shh, he said. He took one of her hands in his and squeezed it. Come over here. He pulled her to her feet close to him. He shifted in his pajamas, and the part of him that made him a man stuck out, reddish purple and brightening. She had never seen one before except on a baby. This was different. He lifted her hand to his mouth and licked it. Then he lowered her hand down and closed it around the hardness. His hand moved hers. His left hand gripped her shoulder, pressing her head tight against the hard, flat plane of his stomach. She watched her hand move back and forth like it didn't belong to her. In the distance, she heard the train pass. A moment later, the thing leaped. Henry's whole body shuddered, and a hot mess lay across her palm and between her fingers. Henry wiped himself quickly with a handkerchief. Then, never letting go of her shoulder, He urged her toward the door. Come on, he said.
Ms. Hargit, your time is up.
Stepfather to a stepmother.
Next, we have Amber Kiernan. Kiernan.
I'm Amber Korean. I just retired 5 years ago now, gosh, from 28 years in the public schools. And I ended my career in Spartanburg District 1 in Spartanburg County. I wish I had a copy of just one of the books that I read in high school, because actually a lot of that sounded very much like it now back in '78. The only one I could remember was called The Wolf and the Dove. And I was raised in a very God-fearing, decent household with parents who loved me dearly, but they didn't tell me what I could read. We were church-going folks. My friends and I passed around those bodice-ripping novels, one after the other to each other. I am glad my tastes have changed. I want to thank Mr. Green for his clarifications for the challenges he faces in this request that his office is receiving, and I appreciate his quick response to one of my notes today. I guess my first question would be, where did the list of books come from? If somebody can tell me that, I would love to know. You can decide what your child reads, but you can't decide what mine does. By banning books, you're deciding for all of us. My second question would be, what are the circulation numbers at the high school? Unfortunately, I was a school librarian, and I'd love to see the libraries in Polk County be more active with students. My own son is now 25 years old, and today I texted him at his job, where he now works in a public library, and asked him, how many books did you check out when you were in high school? Unfortunately, he said, I could read through his text, maybe one. And he said, because they never had time to go to the library. That makes me very sad. When I was here as a parent and I wasn't in this county, I always wanted to come and fix things in the school libraries that I didn't agree with, because I think the libraries can be much more involved. I think having a librarian in your libraries also helps the people who choose the books. However, most of the books on this list, most of them were less than 5 years old, and they were chosen by librarians. Librarians go to a lot of trouble to choose the books that they put in their libraries. They go by their populations. I had a short chance of buying books that I thought were inappropriate for my kids, so I didn't buy them. They go to a lot of trouble to figure out what they're going to put in your libraries. If you ban or forbid or put a parental warning on books, my experience is you can pretty much guarantee there's no better way to get kids to read. Because those are the books they're going to seek out.
Ma'am, your time is up.
I appreciate that. And
Ma'am, I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you. Next, we have Karen Patterson. Okay. Next is Jeff Jenkins.
See if I can read my own handwriting. My son attended Polk County Schools in first grade, and I've not always been pleased with the school, but I rarely interfered with education. We didn't always get what we wanted, but usually he got what he needed. Anyway, if a parent thinks or any public schools and teachers teach extreme content and work to put pornographic material into the classes or into the libraries, they are absolutely mistaken. Teachers and librarians do not do that. I have worked in 4 school districts in North Carolina and South Carolina. They've all been overly conscious of the material shown to their students, and Polk is no exception. All of the the teachers, library staff I knew here care for their students and they care for their education. So my thing is, where did all of this come from? And we can see, we know that the Texas politician put out a list of 500 or 850 books. Did those 13 books come from that 850? You know, I doubt that politician read any of those books, certainly not 850. And I'm not sure that anybody here read all 13 of those other books. All right, if so, you know, I'd like to remind everybody that we don't live in Texas. So I'm not going to live in Texas and say I don't want them choosing my books. South Carolina, they've got a list. And I love South Carolina because, you know, I think North Carolina's got better schools. I've read only one of the books out of the 13. There were stunning abuse and biblical type punishments. And there was a rape. It was never described, but only referred to. It was about fundamentalism, it's about Afghan fundamentalist society. And they tortured people and they forbade activities that were different, non-doctrinal. And it's not a pretty picture. You know, really kind of like Texas and South Carolina. Not a place I care to live. The Taliban in the books also have a penchant for banning books. They deem pornographic or classics. I think we can do better, and I think we have done. And first of all, and lastly, say that Toni Morrison's book, The Blue Sky, isn't a value. That's.
Sir, your time's up. Next is Neil Rogers.
Merry Christmas, everybody. My name's Neil Rogers. I have 4 kids that have gone through the Polk County schools. Love this county. A little concerned about what's happening. Let's focusing on the kids, like you said, Aaron. That's fantastic. That's what I want us to do. I love my kids dearly, and let's choose to be one less place for our children to be tempted by pornography. So let's talk about what that means. The definition of pornography is sexually explicit writing, images, video, or other material whose primary purpose is all sexual arousal. So I'm going to read from 3 books that are on, some of these are on the recommended readings. We start with one that Jeff just talked about. Kite Hunter. Asaph knelt behind Hassan, put his hands on Hassan's hips, and lifted his bare buttocks. He kept one hand on Hassan's back and undid his own belt buckle with his free hand. He unzipped his jeans, dropped his underwear. He positioned himself behind Hassan. Hassan didn't struggle, didn't even whimper. I think that's pretty explicit. Then looking for Alaska. And excuse me, these are not words I like to say. Have you ever gotten a book? No, I said I never had. Think it would be fun? Do I? Yeah, I mean, you don't have to. I think I want to, she said, and we kissed a little, and then with me sitting watching the Brady Bunch, watching Marcia up to her Brady antics, Lara unbuttoned my pants and pulled my boxers down a little and pulled out my penis. Later on in that, what? She looked up at me but didn't move, her face nanometers away from my penis. It's weird. What do you mean weird? I could live with that kind of weird, and then she wrapped her hand around it and put it into her mouth. And waited. We were both very still. She did not move a muscle in her body, and I did not move a muscle in mine. I knew that at this point, something else was supposed to happen, but I wasn't quite sure what. And then from Monday's not coming, look, me and Monday, we did something. We took a deep breath. She sucked my dick. I didn't really want it to happen. It just kind of did. So those are things that are said. Ted Bundy said the night before he died, he said that violent pornography had laid the foundation for his killing spree. And it's pornography of any kind is a slippery slope. You just slide into it. So, and then some statistics, over 40 million Americans are regularly visitors to porn sites. The porn industry's annual revenue is estimated to be more than the combined revenues of ABC, CBS, and NBC. 11 is the average age that a child is first exposed to porn. And tragically, 94% of our kids will see porn by the age of 14.
Sir, your time is up.
One last place.
No, sir, your time is up. Sir, your time is up. Thank you. Sir, no more.
Hey, just being fair.
One more and you're out. Next up is Mario Ratcliffe.
Let's try this microphone. Hello, everybody. I'm Mario Ratcliffe. I actually attended Saluda Elementary School in the first grade, and I'm proud that my son was able to attend pre-K there and is now a high schooler. I'd like to thank you all for your service and your dedication to our community, especially during these stressful times. And I regret that this topic is adding more collective stress for all of us. I'm actually here tonight as a parent. My son has received a stellar education in the Polk County schools, and that education began at the library when he was an infant. And two of the librarians who helped him achieve and recognize his aptitude are actually here in this room tonight, Saluda school librarians and teachers. Along the way, he has explored new worlds and he has researched projects for school. Libraries have helped him achieve. I consider our libraries an essential educational resource, not just for my child, but for everyone's child. Access to books of all kinds is one of the reasons our school system is rated so highly. It's one of the reasons my husband and I chose very deliberately to send our son to the public schools in Polk County. As a parent, it is my responsibility to monitor my child's reading material. It is my responsibility to monitor his cell phone. I don't think I'm the only parent here who is more worried about what he sees on the internet than what he might read in a book. Either way, again, it is his father and I are the ones who decide what he has access to and what is appropriate. That decision belongs to us. I am deeply troubled by any attempt to mandate what my child can and cannot read at school or to limit his access to any book. Anyone who doesn't want their own child to have access to certain books or types of instruction is welcome to let the school know formally. That process is in place and it works well. Again, you can make that decision for your child, but not for mine. Thank you again. I appreciate each and every one of you. Merry Christmas.
Next, we have Amber Hall.
Hello, everyone. As everybody knows, I'm Amber Hall by now. Y'all know my face. Y'all know who I am. I want to speak to a couple of things. These books with these obscene material are not okay for a developing mind. What about these children that don't have parental advisory or parental guidance and just has, let's say, packed it down the street as mom? They don't care. Yes, they've already been exposed, but are we going to traumatize other children that are reading this because of one child? I don't think that's right. To go with the comments that we're talking about, it's a rare choice to choose. We've been saying that since these masks have started. All we have been asking for was our right to choose and transparency for our children. When it stopped being able to be our choice, we had to go to different measures. Second off, I want to publicly tell everybody that y'all have got it all twisted. I was that kid. I was a parent at 16 years old. This stuff would have made me cringe to read it, and I had already spit a child out my vagina. So y'all have a very good day. Thank you.
Next is Melissa Hall.
So I hope what you heard tonight was a little hard to hear, and that you were able to get a vivid picture. There were lots of triggers for anyone that has ever been a victim of grooming or SA. Do you know what SA is? It is sexual assault, if you didn't know. You grow up, these are from people who were survivors. You grow up hating yourself and thinking you caused it and you deserved it. You believe that no one will believe you if you decide to speak out. Dr. Kathy Gazlin, president of the Blue Knot Foundation, has found at least an average of 24 years to speak out about their abuse. I am 37 years old, and this is probably the most people I've ever spoke out about it. I know what it's like to be groomed. I know what it's like, what goes on in some of those books. And you know what, as an adult, reading those books are hard. Think of a teenager, children happening in households right now that we do not know. Think about that. And then reading this and thinking it's okay because they're reading it in a book and realizing this is happening. Grooming is happening. And then them thinking that this is okay and this must be normal because it's in books. The North Carolina statute, please go look it up. It's 14-190. Obscene literature. For purposes of this article, any material is obscene if the material is used and not protected or privileged under the Constitution of the United States and Constitution of North Carolina. As used in this article, sexual contact means vaginal, anal, or oral intercourse, whether actual or stimulated, normal or perverted, or masturbation, exerted functions for lewd exploits of uncovered genitals. An act or condition that tortures physical restraint or made fortitude or harm by a nude person or person clad undergarments or relating to a bizarre custom. Delivers or provides or offers or agrees to sell, deliver or provide any obscene writing, picture, record, or other representation or embodiment of the obscene. Violation of this section is a Class 1 felony. This is hard for me to talk about. We're seeing this across the nation. I'm not here as a political agenda. I'm here as a parent of 3 boys. 3 boys that I hope nothing ever happens to them, but I sure do not want them reading this and making it so easy to go pull off that bookshelf. Make it harder. It is so easy to go get it off the shelf.
Ms. Allen, time is
There's
up.
literature out there for them.
Next, we have Amy Valentine.
Good evening. I come to you tonight as a parent, a teacher, and a librarian. I too am the mother of 3 boys who have come through the Polk County school system. I have been in education for 25 years, first as a high school English teacher and now as a librarian. Teachers choose to teach for many different reasons, to educate our students in a subject, but also to open up the world to our students. We teach them to empathize with the people around them. We teach them to think for themselves. We teach them so that they can make a difference in the world. We cannot do that without books. Books force our students to look at the world from new points of view. Books guide our students to think critically about the world around them. and books help students to grow into intelligent, powerful individuals. As a librarian, I want to point out that books give all of us a way to understand who we are. We use books to identify with others like us, finding our teachers, our mentors, and our heroes in them. In a library full of books, our students can find a safe haven, a place of no judgment, a place of peace. Books like Speak and The Hate U Give help students understand how they're feeling and how to move forward with their lives. And who is anyone to deny that lifeline to a child? According to the American Library Association, libraries are institutions of information and ideas. All people, including students, have the freedom to read, as set out in the Freedom to Read document created in 1953. Quote, "The freedom to read is protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. In a free society, there is no place for censorship. It is the responsibility of librarians to contest encroachments upon that freedom by individuals or groups seeking to impose their own standards or tastes upon the community at large. It is the responsibility of librarians to provide books that enrich the quality and diversity of thought and expression. It is our job, it is our responsibility to ensure this right for our students. Removing books from a library is not okay. Censoring access to books denies students across an entire school, the 624 students of Polk County High School, for example, access to that text because a few parents might not like the ideas in that book. Would it not be better for those parents to read those books with their children and use them to instill values and a love for learning? When we read, we discover who we are and how we matter in the world. If we, as parents and teachers and librarians, as principals and school board members and leaders in our community, if we allow a few to steal from us and our children this act of discovery, then we are robbing from our children who they can become. Do not do that. I want my sons to have access to any book they wish to read. That is my choice as their parent. Do not allow someone else.
Ma'am, your time is up.
Thank you.
Next is Stacy Evans.
I come to you today as a parent of a senior at Polk County High School, and I read The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas in the spring of 2021, and I noticed that was on the list. When my daughter received her summer reading list from her senior honors English teacher, I was very excited to see that included on the list, and I even encouraged her to choose that book. The book is about family, community, racism, anger, poverty, hope, friendship, and so many invaluable lessons. My family is an interracial family. My daughters and I are white, and my husband is black. So this touches a very personal level with myself. When my daughter read this book, she would ask her stepdad questions. Is this real? Did this ever happen to you? Our family had some very real, very serious discussions. She and I learned many truths about racism. We discussed, we debated, we agreed, we disagreed. Thank you, Polk County High School. Thank you for asking my child to read this book. Thank you for asking her to stretch her mind. Thank you for asking her to stretch her way of thinking. Thank you for challenging her.
Next, we have Jenny Purtill.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jenny Purtill. I'm a current parent of a high school student. I want to begin by saying thank you to the members of the Board of Education and the administration and staff of all Polk County schools for persevering through what I know has been an incredibly difficult time. I'm here tonight as both a parent, but also as a professional. I am a licensed school librarian with 10 years experience in Charlotte Public Schools. I currently serve as the director of the Lanier Library in Triumph. I guess you might say that books are my thing.
Like most parents, I'm concerned about what my kids are exposed to. I worry they spend too much time online, and I believe that social media is not a friend to their mental health. Being a concerned parent is a good thing. I understand that some parents are concerned about what books their children are reading from the high school library. And I applaud anyone who is taking the time to read the books their children are reading, especially the books that bring up difficult real-world problems. At times, I have told my kids that a particular book was not the best book for them at that point in time. Other times, I have pressed books into their hands, telling them that particular book is exactly right for them right now. I understand this to be both my right and my responsibility as a parent to my two children. However, it is only my right and responsibility for my two children. I am not here to tell any other parent what their children should or should not be reading. Libraries are intended to be places of access to information for all patrons. All students at this high school should have access to a wide variety of learning material. We do not know what the best book is for every student in the school. I'm asking you as members of the school board to keep the materials chosen from the school library available to the students. If a parent chooses to limit access for their children, that is their right. Please don't allow those decisions to limit access for all. Keep libraries open and available for students to explore important concepts when the time is right for them. Thank you.
Next, we have Allie Heston. Okay. I'm going to apologize on this next name. I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. It's Cammie. Could you say your last name for me, please?
As a parent, I do not choose to stretch my child's mind by having my child read a tale of anal rape. If someone walked up to your child and said the words to them found in the pornographic literature from the books housed in Polk County school libraries, you would likely call the police and alarm and report them. Yet Polk County school-aged children have access to these words which, when read, create images in their minds. This is unacceptable. Children should be protected from obscene material in their school environment. We are calling for higher standards of education in public schools. In fact, scientists across many fields of studies have found that pornography creates harmful structural changes in the brain. Public schools providing access to pornographic literature seem to violate the required North Carolina-based mental health plan, which states schools shall adopt a universal promotion of mental wellness. A violation also seems to occur according to the North Carolina state statute regarding obscene literature. Parents are asking you to remove these harmful books for the safety of all children. This is not about book banning. This is not about book censoring. These books are available in public libraries, and we are not asking public libraries to remove those books. This is about children that are they are required to have a public education or an education. And exposing them to these material in their public education is unacceptable. Thank you.
Next, we have Julie Carroll.
Hi, y'all. I'm a mother of two Polk County students at present, and I had the honor and pleasure of working as a speech pathologist in this district for 12 years. And I have friends and have great relationships with all the folks that I knew when I was there, and I am grateful for that. So thank you. Presently, I'm working as a speech pathologist in Spartanburg County. So I love this community. I love the people there. I've been here for 15 years. And I'm optimistic that after all this is said and done, we can all be tight-knit still. But Mark Twain once said about optimism that a great many of the world's tragedies, great and small, were thumbed up in the minds of optimists. So let's do the world a favor and begin with cold hard facts. And some cold hard facts are that banning books is bad. Also, cold hard fact that the theatrics of masking and quarantine of healthy children is a bad idea. We're tired of fear and hungry. The data's piling up. Fewer than 1,000 kids have died from COVID. It's too many, but fewer than 1,000 have died. We have more risk of dying. Our kids, 0 to 18, have more risk of dying from homicide, suicide, accidents, and heart disease than COVID. They're fine. These kids are fine. I understand. Well, I don't even know. I started coming with big mass agendas and this book burning thing and all that. And I'm saying that in jest because I do think that some of that stuff's awful. I also think that as a parent, it is absolutely my job to tell my kids what to do. And I don't think that any teachers or school systems are pushing these books on their children. So, for what it's worth. As a therapist, I'm seeing a stark increase in kids preschool, early education especially, with increased speech and language deficits, big time. I know there are more kids in the pipeline for learning disabilities, so we're gonna diagnose these kids as being disordered, when in fact, they begin receiving and modeling. We can't pretend like that doesn't make a difference, so it does. I also want to know if this quarantining, as we're doing it now, is it even legal? I know that the Union County Schools in North Carolina in September ceased, halted all of that. Why did they do that? The statement that the board wrote said that school districts do not have the legal authority to quarantine or isolate kids. They can temporarily remove a child, but they don't have the authority to keep them out. Only local and state health officials have that authority. So I asked that question, not rhetorically, is it even legal? If it is it making a difference? If it weren't, would you guys have the integrity to say?
Ms. Taylor, your time is up.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dick Shaughnessy.
Serious topics tonight. And I appreciate hearing from everybody. I think people may have been off topic a little bit, but everybody has a right to put their comments forward. I'm not going to really talk about issues so much tonight. I bring good tidings. I brought my balloon and really I'm in good spirits. We're moving into a time of year where I think we all are going to have a chance to move away from the hard issues that we're facing day in, day out. Go home and spend really good time with our family and friends, and have a time to reflect on the matters at hand when we come back to the school year, which will probably come way too soon. The gentleman who spoke earlier about not having any issues in North Carolina schools, there's a 280-page report that tells pretty clearly that there's a lot of issues in North Carolina schools, one of which being comprehensive sexual education coming into the classroom. And I can share that. We would be happy to do so. But despite all of these things, I think we have to understand that we all, when it comes to our kids, our children, want the same thing. We approach it in different ways, like we do so many things today. When it comes down to our kids, we want what's best for them and their welfare. And everybody's kind of expressing that in different ways tonight. So I would just say to you folks, my advice would be for someone who has a lot of truth and understands conscience and what conscience speaks to, that you would commit your work in the new year to the Lord, and your plans will be established. That's Proverbs 16:13. And I do wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Next, we have Margaret Polk.
I'm Margaret McFarland Clark. I'm kind of rare in Polk County because I was born and raised here. I've not moved in from anywhere except after I retired, but I was born and raised in Polk County. I went to school first through 8th grade at Stearns, and I went to Polk Central High School, 1966 through 1970. With Bill Fagan as one of my classmates. So, and if you don't know, Bill is the attorney for the county schools. During that time, it was very much a time of turmoil, a lot of things going on. I was never able to attend a school in Polk County without a dress on or a skirt. That it was wrong for girls to wear slacks, jeans, or anything of that nature. That may be a little hard to understand, but that was part of the culture, and we did it. But never once in my years of education was I told I couldn't read a certain book. I was a voracious reader. I think I read every single book in the Stearns library. And some of them were not all that wonderful, but I just loved to read. And I loved to learn new things. And it just opened my mind to so many things about how Polk County wasn't the only place on the earth. There were many places out in the world to learn about and to talk about and to observe. And I feel like that I got a good education in Polk County, but one of the biggest reasons I got a good education in Polk County was I was allowed to read and encouraged to read. And never anyone ever put any kind of ban or took any books away from me. And I think that's very, very important for children to have that liberty. Of course, I know parents need to monitor, but the monitoring is different from saying, I'm taking that book away and nobody can read it. I find that just not a smart thing to do. I think we need to let children read. We need to encourage children to read. I'm a retired public school teacher, and I know a child that reads is a child that succeeds. Thank you.
Next, we have Ray Hudson.
I passed, I just gave you what you said.
Michael Parsons.
I was gonna just say this, but
I went to Saluda Elementary School, Polk County Middle, and Polk County High, and thank you so much for my education, and I think it's really well, and I read lots of books.
Whitney Clemson.
I apologize for holding you any longer than I was for the necessary meeting. I'm truly anxious and ready. The results that you posted of the schools and the success that Polk County Schools continues to see year after year in the state is incredible. And I feel fortunate to live here, and I'm so grateful that my 3 children get to attend Polk County Schools. I couldn't have said it better, Mr. Green. I'm so grateful for the dedication of the teachers, and I know they're frustrated and overworked. And I just want everyone to hear straight from me that I could not be more proud or grateful for our office.
Next, we have Joanne Williams. Does not look like Jolene is here. That concludes our public input. At this point, I would entertain a motion to move into closed session. Motion, to have a second. Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Carry 7-0.